Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Lives. This is our weekly conversation with content creators about everything related to live streaming. I'm your host, Anya. I'm here in Austin, Texas. And just so you know, the show is powered by Restream Studio. And if that's my personal favorite way to go live to multiple social media platforms at the same time. And luckily, Studio makes it very easy to do it directly from your browser and to make your live streams look professional. Like this guys that we have, like this Halloween themed overlays going on here. Anyway, if you want to check it out, it's on restream.io/studio. Give it a try, explore it. And if you stick around till the end of this episode, I'm actually going to drop a little discount code, since we have a lot of specials going on today around holidays. So stick around till the end and I'll share something special. Today, we have a very interesting guest. I really wanted to do this episode kind of like Halloween themed, but it ended up being even more exciting. And there's a little bit of Halloween in there because pumpkins, right? So today we are going to explore how artists and craftspersons can take advantage of live streaming and social media platforms, build their audience, connect with their community, and share their work of art. My guest today is Griffon Ramsey. She's an Austin-based art director, chainsaw artist, power sculptor, and video blogger. Hello, Griffon, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. I'm so excited to learn about your work and about, the things that you do. So let's just start with your journey. I think it's very interesting. It would be really exciting for our community to learn how you started as a chainsaw artist, as a sculpturist. So could you just walk us through the first times when you picked up a chainsaw? And I'm going to show a couple of pictures for people so you guys have an idea of how powerful and amazing the work of Griffon is.
Well, I started chainsaw carving about 11 years ago, actually in October. So I just had my anniversary. Oh, not 11, sorry, 9 years ago. Terrible at math. Better at carving, hopefully.
That's great. Oh my God. Right.
So 9 years ago I started, and it was really only supposed to be for one video project. I was working, doing some online content for a production company in town called Rooster Teeth. And that's how I started kind of playing with social media and online content, creating an online community. And I kind of picked up a following there. So when I left the company, I really wanted to go out on my own and start my own YouTube channel. And for the first video, I wanted it to be really powerful. And I'd always wanted to try chainsaw carving, but I'd always been a little too scared. And so, but for this video, at the time, Gears of War 3 was coming out, and there's a chainsaw gun in the game. And so I thought how perfect to do these ideas together. I could carve the Crimson Omen, which is the logo from Gears of War 3, using the chainsaw, and then put out my first YouTube video and kind of look really tough and, like it was sort of to feel empowered, I suppose. And I have to tell you, it is incredibly empowering and highly addictive. So after that first video, I just didn't stop.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So for our community here, we are welcoming you into this conversation. So please drop in your questions about, for me, for Restream, for Griffon, of course, first and foremost. And just to get this conversation started, so you guys are getting kind of comfortable sharing, share with us, what is your craft? Like, do you do anything with your hands? Do you have any kind of a crafts artsy hobby, or maybe it's a professional thing for you? So please let us know. We would really like to find out. And moving on with our conversation. So I was always curious when I saw a bunch of your videos and like how incredible it looks. A woman with a chainsaw, like taking a giant log of wood and just making something beautiful out of it. How do people in general react to when you tell them what you do? When people have this casual, bar conversation, like, "Hey, what do you do, Griffon?" You're like, "Well, I'm a chainsaw artist. Like, I carve things with a chainsaw." How does that conversation usually go? What kind of reactions do you get?
Yeah, I really do love talking about what I do. And really, people get so interested. And I think so. This is a thing I think that's kind of cool about being an artist. We make a lot of sacrifices when we choose to do it as a career, because it's not always so easy and direct to make money at it. But I think, considering I've met some people who make so much money and have these really high-powered careers, but I feel like so often they don't really want to talk about what they do. They want to talk about what I do. And so I feel like that's kind of like worth something in itself. And so, yeah, like definitely people get super interested. If I'm in a hurry and I don't want to talk about it, though, I don't bring it up. I'm like, I'm an artist, and I leave it at that, But if I feel like chatting, yes, I'll mention the chainsaw, and then we'll have a 30-minute conversation. Easy.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I love that. So you are carving. You're working with different materials, right? Like a lot of your work is based on carving wood, but I'm sure you work with something else. what kind of materials are you the most familiar with? What is the most typical carving starting point, so to say? And maybe what was the most unusual and crazy material you ever had the chance to work with in the 11 years of your career?
Well, so 9 years, sorry.
9 years.
My career has been longer. My background is actually in theater and film. And so I had a chance to work with lots of different kinds of materials. And I don't really love to focus by nature. And so this is actually quite a long time for me to focus on one material. But then a few years ago, I got a little bored with wood and I decided to learn ice. And then recently I've always carved pumpkins at home since I was a kid, but now I'm starting to get really a lot more into the art form, using better tools, pushing it further and going more detailed. And then next I'd like to learn sand. And so maybe it's that theater background, but I love to like mix it up and have things be different. But the weirdest material I ever used probably was dryer lint. Like the dryer, when you scoop it out of like the lint trap. It was back in college, it was a film project. And I was making this sort of monster character that was this woman. This woman was taking pills and hallucinating, and she has like her dryer lint comes and attacks her, and it's this giant, like we made a puppet and everything. So that was probably the weirdest thing I've ever worked with, trying to get dryer lint to like become this sort of movable puppet-like sculpture.
Wow, that is amazing. How big was it? Like, what was the size of it?
Well, we had 3 versions. One was a full body suit that a human wore. And then there were 2 different puppets. One was a marionette style, and then one was more like a rod puppet style. So I had a few different, for the different shots we had to make it a few different ways. So
that is pretty remarkable. Wow. Like when I asked you about the weird material, like I never thought that we'll go into that space. That is so unexpected. Awesome. Love that. So when did you decide to start live streaming? How did that experience go? Like how did that thought process look, I guess, for someone who is an artist? And then you realize that, okay, so social media is very powerful. I'm building those communities there. I have fans. I have people who care about what I do. Let me show up and do it live. Like how was that for the first time for you?
Well, God, I can't even remember my first time live streaming. I guess it must have been Rooster Teeth, because a lot of my experience with doing anything online came from there. And so I'm sure it was Rooster Teeth. And since then, I've been doing it on my own. And actually, I guess you had a second part of that question. I'm sorry. What was it?
So how did you start? How did you start live streaming? And if you remember your first live stream, that would be awesome.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't remember the first one.
That's okay. Sorry. No worries. That's okay.
Can I tell you what I do like about live streaming that I think is super interesting?
Absolutely.
I mentioned my background in theater. I think the thing that live streaming offers is that live interactive experience between the creator and the audience, and actually being able to build that connection. And like the fact that people right now can ask us any question, we can like, shout out to anyone. Hey, Mark, Messmore. Like, it's cool that we have this like in the moment experience where it's similar to theater in that sense, I think, where we actually build this sort of energy together, which you can't do with film, which is already finished, and the audience has no real input other than buying tickets,
Awesome. Yeah, I had a question for you about finding a good balance between working with wood and chainsaw and also working with equipment like camera and microphone. So live streaming in my world, at least how I approach it, is a pretty delicate process, right? It's an art that has like a lot of like light and cameras. Don't get too close to the microphone. Don't get like anything wrong happening to the camera. And then you imagine a chainsaw, right? Like you imagine the space where you work, the type of materials, like like little wood chips flying everywhere. Do you have any fun stories or fun experiences of how live streaming a chainsaw carving go wrong, something of that sort?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it fun though. Like, it was an $800 mistake. Actually, I just replaced my lens from my Canon because not that long ago, I was filming a time-lapse video of doing a chainsaw carving. And at some point I go and grab the sander and then I'm sanding, but I had been plugging my camera into the same extension cord, which had multiple outlets, as my tools. And I get up and I start walking off with the sander, which is still plugged in, and it pulls my camera across the floor and it smashes and breaks an $800 lens. So like that learned a lesson, 2 extension cords. But but yeah, I'm always having things fly at the camera, or bar and chain oil greasing up the lens. I've started investing in much better lens filters now because lenses are just so expensive. And I have an air compressor to clean the dust out, but I'm sure I'm destroying that camera by I have sawdust floating around like constantly. So I do feel a lot of pressure sometimes because it's an investment. It's investment in this equipment, and I just am not a delicate person, and I can't have nice things.
That is amazing self-awareness right there. Like,
Well,
not a delicate person.
I just
Don't
have
do all those cameras.
I have to learn the same mistakes over and over again. And the lens was probably the most expensive and painful time that I've done that, but I've ruined plenty of things that like just broken things or just, like I've got a big van and everything piles up and it's like I try to keep track of it all, but it's just like so much stuff to haul around all the time. And so I've really actually started using, when I go on the road, bringing a GoPro in
Oh
my
my God.
iPhone. Like I've gotten a lot more less complicated when it comes to like on the road stuff, because I just don't want to like damage the equipment. And I also have to carry a lot of tools and stuff with me too. So it's just like just so much to manage.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance between elevating your quality of video and also making sure that things are simple and things are manageable and compatible with what you do. So, like, sometimes a good web camera is a great solution, and it doesn't cost that much. And if something happens to it, you don't feel so bad. But it actually produces decent quality. Just to say hi to some people from our community here. Robin is saying, "Hey, you, hey." Randy is saying, "Howdy, howdy." And in reaction to what you mentioned earlier, he says, "Oh no, that's something that would happen with me 100%."
Yeah.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Griffin is a sourdough queen. That's awesome. Do you also work with food? Like, do you carve like any kind of like edible objects?
Well, I mean, a pumpkin is technically edible, but
True.
similar to pumpkin carving, you can carve watermelon, which is actually a really cool thing to do if you're in the off season, you can't get yourself a pumpkin. Carve a watermelon because it has several layers of color too, and it has that solid center of red you can still sculpt. So you can actually get like some pretty amazing effects in watermelon, maybe more than even pumpkin. But there is something charming about pumpkin. People like to see it.
I love it. I love the watermelon
Also,
idea. That's awesome.
another trick from my family is that if you can drill a little hole and put a bunch of vodka in there and bring it to a party.
That sounds like a good hack. Like we should try that in the office. I know a lot of people will appreciate it here. Definitely. No, that's beautiful. So how is it different to work with such a drastically different materials, right? Like wood is something that you think of like as big, as like hard, and then there's pumpkin that is small, delicate. I don't know if it can explode or make a huge mess if you do something wrong, but I'm assuming it could. So how is it different to work with those two materials?
Yeah, that actually is the biggest challenge of it, because in some ways I'm still using the same skill set, which is subtractive sculpture, and then also sometimes add-ons too. It's like add-ons also are part of all kinds. You can do it with ice and wood and pumpkin too. Pumpkin, the most challenging thing is that it is hollow. And not only is it hollow, like it changes texture, which is good because it can kind of let you know as you're getting closer to the inside, but it also can be a struggle because it'll like pull, like it'll get stringy on the inside. And so I think pumpkin is actually quite challenging compared to like ice and wood. And wood is so solid. It's like, and it's its own structure in itself. Like pumpkin, if you want to do a big build out, you have to like do a framework on the inside, and like to make it solid. But whereas wood is already that. So actually, after focusing on pumpkins for a while, I'm kind of learning to appreciate wood in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. So when you stream, you mentioned that sometimes you have those time lapses, or you create videos about specifically how the piece of work comes to reality, right, from scratch. What type of streams do you typically like? What is your most common live content? Is it behind the scenes, or is it actual work, or do you just like show up and talk to the community, answer their questions? How does your content look?
Well, in the past, I started with some of my first streams that I did as Griffin Ramsey, the artist, not at Rooster Teeth. I did always plan some big activity or some big build, or like we have a party and all of us are making stuff, but it's so chaotic. And like I said before, I think the real magic of live stream is this interaction with the audience. And I've found that if I try to plan too many things, or if I try to accomplish something, especially because if people are watching, I want it to be perfect, then I can't actually focus on the people who are watching. And so I've been trying, and for the future streams I'm going to be doing with Restream, I think I'm going to be doing something a little bit more like this, where maybe we'll have a topic and maybe I'll have a guest and have a conversation. But I think that it's really important to be always paying attention to the chat, because otherwise I might as well just make a time-lapse video,
Exactly. So, and I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it is not very easy to manage.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I bumped something. I just bumped something. Oh no.
You're good with delicate things, right? Like, here's another delicate thing coming in. The remote control. That is so funny.
No, I have a hard time, like tech just always I always mess it up.
No, that's awesome. I mean, and that's kind of the beauty you mentioned about live streaming, right? Like how interactive is important. It's the beauty of live stream that it's not going to be picture perfect. It's not going to be like your polished edited video where
Yeah.
everything is just exactly how you want it to be, and all the bad moments are gone, and only the best moments are there, and they're also enhanced. So with live streaming, you kind of have to deal with it. Like if a kid runs into your room, or if a dog starts barking, and you're just kind of like, or the power goes out, and you're just like, okay, so this is what happened. Moving on, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of interactive, so I'm imagining that it is very difficult to manage chat and conversation with people while still working a chainsaw. Like I cannot even imagine doing one of those things, especially the chainsaw part. How do you keep the chat or the conversation inclusive and interactive if you are doing any kind of work at the same time?
Well, so I haven't been able to manage that very well. So I'll like go and carve for a bit. People will be talking amongst themselves, and then I'll come back
Yeah.
and I'll say hi. But I'm thinking going forward, and a little bit that I've already practiced with. I like to have somebody emceeing, or somebody else should be there, at least keeping an eye on the chat, or that can flag me down. So that's why I'm thinking in the future it might be better to do something more, conversational. But I also know that people really love to watch the process. And actually, what you're mentioning, the people running in the background, kids and everything. I do kind of think this is an interesting time, or even like celebrities we're seeing inside their homes, because that's where they're filming from. It's like weirdly, it's humanizing everything kind of in an interesting way. And the rawness, I don't really mind so much. I don't know. I think that people, and honestly, this whole digital media thing has really made like having the perfect camera isn't so necessary. Like, do I need a 4K camera for my YouTube channel? Not so much, so I don't know. I think sometimes I like to see the mess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's interesting that what you mentioned about how, it's sometimes at some point you would want to get help, right? Like someone else helping you to manage the stream. Because in the end of the day, it's great to have a conversation, but the beauty and the magic of your work is in carving. So this is what people are originally, coming in for.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit about how you built your community? So you have a very established and good following on your Twitter. You have other social channels that are growing dynamically. How was that journey happening for you in terms of building that community, galvanizing those people around your work, and sustaining, maintaining those relationships?
Well, it started a long time ago, before I even knew it was happening. And then, like I said, when I decided to leave, I did make the channels. I made my own individual solo channels because I already had people who kept asking to see more. And so I'm like, well, I need to at least have a place for them to go. And then it's this interesting thing that I really love about social media is that you have this immediate feedback, and even with my friends from high school, or just my personal Facebook friends, that I accumulated over the years of going to college or wherever. When I first started chainsaw carving, when I would put a photo up or anything, it was like they were all, the thing that's been amazing about chainsaw carving, because I've done a mix of things like my whole career, but chainsaw carving like spoke to everyone. It was like immediately I had people I hadn't heard from in years commenting and giving me feedback, and they were excited, and then that helped me get excited. And so like this 9 years is a long time for me to focus, and I really have to give a lot of credit to my community and that sort of back and forth conversation we've been having, because their enthusiasm has really given me a lot of energy to keep going with it. And because it's not the easiest thing to do or the easiest thing to learn, and physically it's really demanding, but my excitement is really wrapped up in more than just me. It's like, I don't know. And I love being able to, this is kind of rambling. Okay. So your point about like growing the community, I think the thing that is about having that online community is opening up more than just the work, the perfect, like you said, the perfect finish that we want to show. I think that showing that behind the scenes, doing a quick, like, okay, I'm on my way here and I just spilled gas, like just the little things in your day to day. I think that those things almost are what people are, I wouldn't say more interested in, because you need both. You need to have the finished, beautiful thing for people to be interested in it. But I think that as far as getting that comfort level with your people, it's maybe opening it up to more personal life stuff, which is a double-edged sword, because sometimes people can have like opinions about your life. Like I went through a real painful divorce recently and had a lot of people I didn't know gave me opinions about it. And it's like, cool, so, but it's sort of, but I've also really always opened my personal life up to the internet. And I think that has made people feel like we're friends, and it's kind of strange, this world we're living in, because someone can know like so much about you, Like, see, people have seen inside my kitchen, you know, like they might know what's in my pantry, but I've never met them in my life, you know?
Right, right. That's kind of the beauty of this. I mean, it sounds bad when you say it this way. Not necessarily the beauty, but the power of the situation we're in, like the global health crisis, is that you do kind of, everyone is in the same boat, so everyone is invited into your personal space, into your living room, into your house, into the area where you just normally exist. And yeah, I think it takes a lot to manage that and to be okay with this, people coming in and just acting like, okay, so I know you. So yeah, I think it's it is the power of an artist, right? Like to stay authentic, and at the same time to like stay positive, to keep your community positive about things that are happening. So yeah, that's
Well, and not just an art, the online, the influencer, that role, you know, more than just being an artist, anyone who chooses to do the influencer thing, or like the online personality, whatever we want to call whatever this weird new class of workers, you know, like whatever it is, that is like, I don't know, it is, there is something that people might see it as like, oh, they're just successful and they get everything, whatever. There's this weird personal sacrifice that comes with that, you know, just to be so personal. And I'm always like, I don't know, if some of the early internet people, what was that girl, Jenny Cam, whatever, where it was this girl who just like had a webcam in her room, like her dorm room, like nonstop. Like, it's so brave in a weird way, you know?
yeah,
Actually, something I thought was really interesting about this time during the pandemic is watching Saturday Night Live when they were at home, and to
yeah,
see all the different actors, because we all see them on the equal playing field on the stage, like at the set.
yeah.
But then when you see where they live and like the differences in like who has a beautiful house with a pool versus who's living in a tiny little apartment, it's interesting that you suddenly, like, I don't know, you see them in a totally different context when you kind of know what they're working with and then how they relate to each other. Because we use all of these weird things, these like social classes and things like that, to kind of distinguish people. But in a situation like a show, you don't really know that about them. They're just these actors. But then you see them as these people, and you start to form ideas about them just based on what money they might have. You know, it's kind of like strange just to
Yeah.
like have that insight into them.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who's just joining us, let me reintroduce you real quick. My guest today is Griffin Ramsey. She's Austin-based art director, chainsaw artist, power sculptor, and video blogger. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I see Philip is saying, Anya, say fantastico. I guess that's Italian. David says yes, and Da Moderno Da Vinci says Griffin is slightly out of focus there. Well, you know what? We do what we got to do, right? Yeah, like, fun times. So I wanted to talk to you about monetizing your art a little bit. So in one of the interviews that I watched with you, preparing for this show, you very openly and very honestly says that growing up, your parents told you you cannot be an artist for a living. You cannot make money by being an artist. So I guess you kind of sort of proved them wrong at this point. And for all these aspiring artists, people who are just starting their journey as creators and artists, how do you monetize your work? And what's your advice to them?
Well, and actually, I was just talking with somebody yesterday about this. When you're a freelancer in general, but freelance artist, it's really good to start having multiple revenue streams. And so I have to do a mix of things. So I have, in my house, I rent out a spare bedroom, and a little apartment in the backyard. So I have, my mortgage is helped by my roommates. And then my studio, now I just got some studio mates because of the pandemic. I didn't want to spend as much money on my studio, so I had to downsize. So I have those things as kind of like a constant, like, especially right now because I lost my live shows. On YouTube, I have some revenue, but it's not a lot. I do sponsored thing. I have a sponsor. Well, one primary sponsor, Still Incorporated, who's helped me a lot over the years, and they hire me often to do live chainsaw carving demos for like dealership openings and sales, and sometimes like trade shows and things like that. And I found actually quite a lot of success in the live art thing. And I think just seeing it around Austin too, with spray painters and everything, that live art is something people love to see the process. And for a lot of people, if you have a talent, like you can make something with your hands, or you have the vision to just create, a lot of people are interested in that. And they find like, even just almost like a meditative, like being able to watch, like process videos or whatever. So I've found that the live shows in some ways can bring in more money than doing just like a sculpture and selling it. And then sometimes I will do something like, I'll have a commission, but I know that the topic is super interesting to like this brand over here. So I might make a video and then get a little bit of money coming in from the brand, to help make the video, and then I'll also be selling the carving. So sometimes I'll be doing a little double dipping, but not like unethically. I mean, everyone knows about it. I make sure everyone's okay with it. So there's different ways to do it. I do try to always make as much money as possible in any way I possibly can, just so I can keep doing this. And I'm not saying, like, I think I do well for myself as an artist, but I always have to say as an artist, because it's not easy, and it's probably not, if I were to compare myself from my friend who went and became a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, you know, even though it took me forever to learn how to do all this stuff, there's still like an imbalance there. But I'm reading this book right now called Rise of the Creative Class. I think that's what it's called. And I'm actually feeling really encouraged, because if you really look at all of the things that, all the different kinds of jobs that require creativity, it's a pretty high percentage of the jobs out there are creative, and they are needed. And one thing that separates us as things get more and more automated from, like, you know, what an algorithm can do or a computer can do, is that we do have that human creativity, and that's going to become more and more valuable. And now that we have all of these tools to self-promote or to bring in a little money here and there, like marketplaces and things like that, I think it's going to be way more feasible. I mean, it is already now, but I think it's only going to get better and better for the artists to make a decent living at it, enough to be able to survive off of their work. And for my dad, like, I confronted him about it recently, like, that was terrible advice. And he was like, well, that was what my guidance counselor told me. And I think actually, based on my dad's history, because he would go and work for places like Hewlett Packard and, you know, stable sounding jobs, they had massive layoffs, you know, so he worked for almost 10 years there, and then they had a big layoff. So we always think that the freelance route is not very secure. And yeah, there's feast and famine. But once you grow your client list, you lose a client, it's not the end of the world. But if you put everything into one job that you have no control over and no insight to what the company's doing, I mean, you could lose it in one day and everything's gone. So I think actually freelancing, contract work, if you are able to stay self-disciplined and actually stay on top of it, is a really stable sort of option.
Yeah, and it's it's a great perspective on that it's liberating to know that at least everything is in your hands, right? Like if you go out there and hustle and look for clients and look for different alternative sources of revenue, right? Like you mentioned sponsorships being one thing. As you grow on social media, you can secure sponsorships of people who are after your community and your audience. You can also get donations from the community that supports you. It's not going to be much, but then, you know, with numbers, you eventually get to the place where it could be pretty comfortable.
You're mentioning that. Actually, I used to have a Patreon page, and for a while there I was making $4,000 a month with it, but I just mismanaged it and ran it into the ground, and eventually was so embarrassed I shut it off. But there's a project in the future I can see having a Patreon page that's for this specific project, but it's not ready to reveal yet. But I think Patreon actually is for some people, especially people who do something consistently, like a show like this. Patreon is a great option for artists, just to at least pay their bills or whatever, you know. And I think it's great for the people who like their work to have that little extra access. Like I've got a thing I'm a fan of that I go to their Patreon. We get to do these little like secret hangouts together and meetups, like Zoom meetups and stuff. And I really love to have that inner access. And I'm sure a lot of people are be willing to pay for that, especially if they can know that they can help their favorite artist continue doing what they do.
Absolutely. What do you think is the role of social media in any artist or craftsperson when it comes to monetizing their work? Is it important to be on social? Is social media helpful in terms of selling and keeping yourself afloat?
Yeah, it's not only for that, but I think in the general perception of your business. And I think for every business, anyone who's an entrepreneur, anyone who's doing any kind of business or art or something where they're hoping to try to live from it, they should be on social media. And it depends. I mean, it's really hard to do all of the platforms. Actually, that's why I really like Restream. It's hard to keep all of that up. And so you don't necessarily have to do all of them, but maybe figure out what's the best for your business. So for chainsaw carving, I'm finding Facebook I'm using way more than I ever thought. And people all keep saying, Facebook's dead because 13-year-olds don't use it. I'm like, well, we're all still alive. And we have and the adults have money. So like, don't just give up on Facebook because the kids aren't there, you know? So I find all my community there. And actually I've made so many international friends with Facebook, and I have couches to sleep on all over the world because of that. So I keep Facebook thriving for the chainsaw carving, but Instagram has the highest engagement. It's the best thing for me to use when it comes to brand deals, like integrated marketing stuff. And so I'm always using Instagram as well. And I like that Instagram, anytime something threatens it, like Snapchat or TikTok, it just steals what they do and like incorporates it. Like I do like that about them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, they're very resilient, isn't it? Isn't that true? Yeah, it's interesting. So, speaking of your live streams, like, do you monetize the live streams at all? Like, is there any income that's coming in from your lives?
So actually, to what we were talking about right before we got to the show, and actually why I've been so interested in a Restream. I've been wanting to start this ongoing live stream show, which I'm about to sort of launch, and I've done a few tests recently. But I have had such a hard time deciding which platform to I grow, because I already have like maybe 20,000 followers on Periscope, but it's not monetizable. And then like Instagram's tempting to use because I always want to keep Instagram thriving, because it is probably my strongest account that I use the most for the art business, you know? But then Facebook is where all my chainsaw carver friends and people who might actually care about that are, you know? And so I have like, I can't do like a stream for every single one of them. And I can't ask the Instagram people to go to Facebook, because they're not really going to. People aren't really going to leave that platform they're comfortable on to go unless they have all of them, but not everyone does. And like I said, a lot of my cooler tech people friends are not using Facebook. So how to do it all at the same time. That's why I'm super interested in Restream, because and I love that Restream chat consolidates all of the chats into one window, and it tells you where they're tuning in from. So you can not only shout out to who's talking to you, but you can also see, oh, this is a Facebook friend. This is this person's on Periscope. I think that's really smart. So
Thank you.
what was that the question? What was the question?
Yeah, that was the question. Like, if the live streaming is also something that you're planning to monetize, if that's something that you see as potential source of income, and
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it. Yeah, like because Restream allows you to go live to all those platforms at the same time, then you can apply those same techniques and tactics, whether it's sponsorships or donations or support from a community, but you can actually aggregate it from all the platforms, so you can include everyone in one conversation while seeing where they're coming from. Speaking of which, Mark here from Twitter is saying she deserves all the support. Thank you, Mark. That's really good to hear. I agree. All artists deserve support. So yeah, don't hesitate. If you have a favorite artist, like that's an interesting question also. If you have a favorite creator, someone who you watch, and maybe not all of the creators are very good at marketing themselves or selling, right? Like those are very separate skills. Being able to carve something with a chainsaw, or being able to streamline the process of how people could pay, are completely different skills. So what would you, like, my recommendation is always like, hey, be proactive yourself. Drop them a line and say, hey, I would love to support you. How do I do that? But from your perspective, like what is your thought process? Like, how do you think about trying to make it easy for people who want to support you? How can they do that?
Oh, wait. So is this a question about that being supporting to me, or a question about
supporting
how promote themselves?
Yeah, how can community support you as an artist? And I'm sure that is going to be relatable and applicable to a lot of artists, not just chainsaw carvers, right? Like if you are creating something with your hands, how do you tell your community, I would like to get your support? It really helps me.
Well, I mean, I guess when I need support, I ask for. I'm trying to be better at call to actions, just like watch the video. Like you wouldn't think you have to say it, but just putting a link up, like today I put a link on Twitter, and then I'm like, I probably should say watch the video, so people know it's a video, not just a random link. So just remembering, okay, what is it that just a quick little, what is it I actually want them to do here? It's good to remember to do that. And I'm trying to get better at those things for sure. But something you just said, you would encourage people to take the bull by the horns and to actually do this stuff for themselves. Yes. And I'm always saying this to my chainsaw carver friends, because a lot of them are not tech savvy, and they're slow to get to Facebook even, and to try to convince them to go to Instagram is going to be a whole thing. But, and I've had some friends of mine guys, well, mostly it's men in chainsaw carving, that are like, well, I wish my wife would do all the marketing like so-and-so's wife. I mean, why isn't she doing it? I'm like, well, does she have a job? It's not her job to do your Instagram. Like, do it, I have to do my own too. Like, and if you can't, then hire somebody to do it, get your, I can't figure out TikTok, but I really need to. So I'm getting my 15-year-old daughter, instead of paying her to do like clean up the yard, I'm going to pay her to do my TikTok. Like,
that's awesome. That's a great shortcut. Like, I love that. That's very creative.
I totally understand that burnout feeling you get if you don't have the tech skills, and then suddenly you're supposed to be your own marketing team and whatever. And it changes. And every time you've got to go update the app, you got to learn where everything is again. Like, I totally get it. It is exhausting. Yeah. It is.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting how you mentioned, right? Like how the community and just our society in general is very demanding to any kind of online like personality type people. So you have to be good at what you do. In your case, carving and creating your sculptures. You also have to be a good marketer. You need to know how to sell, how to promote. You also have to be good with tech, the thing that you kind of touch based on. Like you have to know how to set up your cameras, your microphones, how to make sure that your videos are appealing. If that's not a video, still you have to understand how those platforms work. And there's a lot to unpack there, right? And keep together and keep in your on your mind. So little example of call to action right here happening right now. If you guys want to connect with Griffin, you can find her on Twitter at Griffin Ramsey right here. Oh no, right here. And you can also find her on griffonramsey.com. That's where you can find all of her social media accounts. You can learn a lot about her work. There's a ton of multimedia videos that you can watch and see how she creates her majestic works. I definitely highly recommend checking this out. And from there, there's a contact information as well. So if you want to get involved and want to participate, help support her work, or commission her, this is the place to go right here. And yeah, so that was a call for action.
Oh, thanks. So, I think you were trying to get me to do that, and I totally missed the. Thank you for doing that.
No worries. Yeah. No, I was planning on this. Okay, so yeah, good. That's great. So one other thing that I heard you say previously was that there are no classes on chainsaw carving.
Well,
so that's probably old, right? Like that's from some time ago. Like it's not like you can just go and like buy a course, or can you? How do you learn?
Yeah, there are some, but they usually require you travel, and they're not cheap. And so there's Aaron Kostick or Elegant Ice Creations.com. You can find out about their boot camps. And so they'll have like a twice a year. I think it's twice a year. They'll meet up at like this beautiful campground and spend a couple of days carving. And then you have these really skilled instructors kind of going step by step, showing you how to complete a carving. And they have usually fruit and vegetable carving, ice carving, and wood carving, and they're all separate. So you go and you're all hanging out together as a group, but then you go to your individual. You'll have all the wood carvers, the ice carvers, and like the fruit and vegetable carvers. And then in the fall, they do pumpkin carving. And so you can get a boot camp situation with them, but you have to go to like West Virginia, and it's like I said, it's not always super cheap. I'm going to be teaching a workshop in December for women only, the first one, and then I'll probably offer it later co-ed, but I want to give women the head start because we need more women doing this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love your approach. So what about online classes? Is it a crazy idea to teach someone how to carve virtually?
Well, and I don't know if it's out yet, but Simon O'Rourke, who's one of the best in the world, like I'm a super fan of Simon O'Rourke. He's amazing. And a lot of the chainsaw carvings you've probably seen that have gone viral, a lot of them are his. So he's teaching some online courses, and I know he's putting a lot of work into like doing a really good job with them. I'm pretty sure he's sponsored by Still in Great Britain. So if you can check out Simon O'Rourke, and then you can probably get some online classes there. And so far, I haven't really been doing the teaching tutorial thing. I'm about to do one in the near future. And I don't know if I can mention it yet who it's for, but someone is hiring me to do a little like chainsaw carving tutorial video. So I'll be doing that soon. I haven't really been approaching it yet from the teaching angle, but now that I'm starting to do pumpkin carving workshops and stuff, I'm trying to improve my teaching skills. But in the meantime, if you can't wait, like Simon O'Rourke is amazing. So he probably has some really awesome, and I think his angle on it isn't, here's how you carve a bear, here's how you carve an eagle. I think he's trying to teach you the skills you need to carve whatever you want. So if you don't want to carve a goddamn bear, sorry, but like we don't need any more wooden bears out there. Okay. So if you want to try chainsaw carving, it would be cool to tune into his, because he'll give you some skills that'll let you be a lot more like free thinking with it.
Yeah, that's great. That's lovely. Yeah, so and that's another potential opportunity for any artist, right? Turn your skill and your knowledge into a class, because you'll be surprised how many people might be interested in learning what you do. And if you're an expert, that's worth something. There's value in this. And luckily, right now, there's so many platforms and opportunities to offer those classes virtually, including live. Like, you can even use something like Restream in order to teach people how to do things like the basics. And I'm sure with chainsaw, it's a little bit more difficult and complex. Like you kind of want to like watch what people are doing, I'm assuming, but still there's room for that. And there's a lot of like little skills and tips and tricks that you could share online that are going to be very powerful and desirable by people. So yeah, that's good stuff. Awesome. So I wanted to ask you one last question to kind of wrap this up. So you mentioned that you are going to do workshops, you have done carving in front of people, you participate in a lot of competitions where part of the process is when you carve and people are watching. How is carving with people in person in offline events different from doing that virtually online? Since that's kind of the theme of this year, everything going virtual.
Well, like there is nothing like the live experience, as far as energy and everything. But there's sometimes the upside too of doing something live where either way, it's eyeballs. And there's some energy that comes from that, at least for me. And I know a lot of artists enjoy attention. So, and it helps feed us. So either way, having that immediate feedback and that energy from the eyeballs and from people actually showing an interest and being interested, it helps drive us forward. And I feel actually quite a lot of satisfaction in the virtual experience. I don't feel like it, for me, I don't feel as so much that it's like not real. I feel it like it's very real, but I've been doing this for a while. But and the upside of doing the virtual thing actually is that we can do it from the comfort of our own homes or from our own shops. Like we don't have to like pack up everything and drag it there and set it up and then deal with like wind and weather. And, like I can sit in my living room very comfortably and like do this. So I kind of think it's a great option. And one thing that's sort of interesting about this pandemic is that this was going to happen anyway. Like we were going to have more of a global community connected easily. Like right now, you and I could be in country. I mean, as long as we were willing to stay up late or get up early, like we could be doing this countries apart. It wouldn't matter. And I think that's so exciting. Well, and part of chainsaw carving, part of my work has been so global. And I really want to continue that. And I like that it's not a good thing, the pandemic, but I do think it's been really eye-opening to the global community and that it is a global community and that a problem that exists in this country can affect the whole world quite quickly because we're so mobile now. And I kind of love the idea of people thinking outside of their little communities and trying to make friends overseas more, and like, I think it'll be a real great thing for the world to feel like we're all human. Like, yeah. I don't think that there's so many differences. I mean, you're from Russia,
Yeah.
And like, I think how long have you lived here? Can I interview you? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely. Yeah. I've been here for 10 years. So I guess for Austin standards, I'm almost considered local because I've been here long enough. So yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely, it's, I think art is one of those things. The beauty of art is that it connects people no matter anything, right? No matter their background, no matter where they come from, no matter their religion, their political views, people can still agree and connect around art and around beautiful work and around the artist behind it, their story, their journey, their emotion, the soul that they put into it. So I think it's definitely something amazing that you do, that you always did. But right now with the pandemic, when a lot of feelings and emotions are exaggerated and everything is blown out of proportion, this is a great opportunity to find some silver lining, right? Like something beautiful, because we're all kind of stuck at home. We have to make a lot of changes in our day-to-day work life and routine, but at the same time we can connect. We can join a community of an artist, support that artist, learn from that artist how they do what they do, and that definitely brings some happiness no matter where you are. So yeah.
Well, and for anyone out there who's doing this kind of thing or trying to grow their online community, the fact that we're all kind of using the same tech right now, I mean, the fact that Saturday Night Live is being made just like our little like homemade videos, like that's kind of exciting. And actually, I think that, and a friend of mine who works at Discovery was saying that the whole new crop of talent is going to come out of this because we all have the same access to being seen, really, at the moment. I mean, other than, yes, of course, some people have more of a following and they already have the thing built in. But either way, one of your little videos can go viral, and who knows, you could be there like next week. Who knows? That's kind of exciting for the creator.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, tools like what we are offering, like the studio that we're using right now is what we think is very visionary, because we are empowering anybody who has a message to deliver, a community that they have already built, to just do it very easily with a click of a button. You don't have to have a studio similar to your local TV station or TV channel in order to connect with your audience, communicate what you want, and actually even get the feedback, right? Like you can see the comments and messages. So we definitely encourage everyone. Like we're hoping that this experiment, like this kind of like forced experiment on humanity, is going to empower people to to give it a try, to see how their talents can be unleashed. And live video is one of the ways to test it out big time, because it's scary. You're very vulnerable when you go live in real time, but at the same time, it can produce some great results because it's authentic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I really do think the whole global thing is so interesting, because we can talk, like, yeah, I'm talking to you, you're down the road. I mean, you're not that far away from me, actually. I think we're pretty close in Austin, but you could quite easily be somewhere else. And so the idea that you could have an international hangout of artists as easily as you could have just a quick conversation, like you would have any Zoom meeting with your friend downtown. Like I really do like that. Like it's sort of like you can think about this all a lot differently, a much bigger stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Griffin, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Real quick here, Josh from YouTube is asking, "Hey, Anya, what mic are you using?" It's actually AKG P220. So if you're interested, I can drop the link to like my whole setup. I can share exactly like everything that I'm using for the studio. But yeah, that's the mic, and I hope that means that I sound good. So so that's why you're asking. Thank you so much, Griffin, for coming in, for joining us today, for sharing your stories, for sharing all those great things. And yeah, thank you. And you have a wonderful Halloween. Any special plans for Halloween? Like, sorry we're almost wrapping up, but no, I want to know what are you doing for Halloween?
I'm going to be doing a live pumpkin carving demo at Pioneer Farms. It's in North Austin. But yeah, come check it out. They're having a big pumpkin patch, big pumpkin trail. They've got lots of things happening, music, drinks, and I'll be doing some live pumpkin sculpting if you want to come check it out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll tag you in under the videos that are going to be posted. And if you can send the link to that event, so for those people who happen to be in Texas or somewhere close, so they could check it out. And I will definitely, I'll try to be there. That's not far from me. So yeah.
It's fun. And there's a lot to do out there, and the whole place is haunted. So if you believe in ghosts, it's a fun place to go.
That's awesome. That's one of the best ways to spend Halloween anyway. So thank you so much, Griffin. It was such a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so this is our show for today. Thank you so much, everybody who tuned in, and I greatly appreciate your questions, your comments. This is all great stuff. As I promised, I am going to share a quick little something with you guys who is thinking about starting your own live show and your own live series. This is my special promo code. It's called Halloween Friday Lives. Sorry, I cannot even read my own promo code. You can get a discount for Live Studio or pretty much any Restream products. And I'm also going to drop the link in the chat, so it's just clickable, because I understand it's probably not the easiest thing to copy and paste. Here you go. So yeah, please check it out. Hopefully it's going to help you if you're just starting and exploring. There is a free account for Restream as well, but you can check out our paid version. And if you think like this is something that you want to do for real, this code should help you out. So this was our show for today. I definitely appreciate you all showing up and all your questions again. Thank you so much. And I will see you next Friday. You all have a wonderful weekend, a super spooky and enjoyable Halloween, and wonderful rest of your day. Bye.